Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here from Zoobox, and today we're going to be talking about David Koepp's 1999 film Stir of Echoes. It is adapted by David Koepp from a Richard Matheson novel of the same name. It stars Zachary David Koepp, Kevin Bacon, Catherine Erb, Ileana Douglas, Kevin Dunn, Connor O'Farrell, and others. We'll just say others. A lot of people. Lisa Wheel. Lisa Wheel. Oh my goodness, what a name that is. But yeah, the synopsis is after being hypnotized by a sister in law, a man begins seeing haunting visions of a girl's ghost and a mystery begins to unfold around him. Stir of Echoes is interesting because it came out around the same time The Sixth Sense came out. It's like one of those things where it's like Armageddon and Deep Impact, and then you had, and this was another one of the doubling up of kind of a similar concept, even though they're wildly different movies. But I think people would unfairly pit them against each other. It was almost like you had to choose. Do I like Armageddon or Deep Impact more? Did I like The Sixth Sense or do I like Stir of Echoes more? I hadn't seen this in a very long time, but I always enjoyed Stir of Echoes. It's a very solid movie, a solid ghost story murder mystery that has a lot of layers to it. It's got a lot of stuff going on that I don't think everybody gives it credit for. It's got a very tight script. David Koepp is mostly known as a writer, and you can tell that he put a lot of effort into making kind of a tight, very idiosyncratic, very logical script. Everything that gets set up in this movie has a payoff. It kind of ends with a nice, neat little bow. And it was it was interesting to watch that. It was cool because you can see his author's hand in the story. Because he's like a workman-like director. He's not very flashy. He kind of just is, that's not really what he's interested in. I think he's just interested on telling the stories. He's more of like a literary guy. Because this feels more like a literary tradition, like it would be a book or story, right? Which makes sense. He adapted a Richard Matheson novel. So coming back to it, I was really taken with it. I thought it was really great. There's tons of awesome little character moments, a lot of texture. I think it builds out the world that all this is taking place in incredibly effectively. The characters themselves feel real and feel lived in. Everybody gets their little moment to kind of to shine as an actor, as a character that infers so much about their history and their past and the things that have been happening in their lives that everything kind of makes sense. It doesn't feel like things are coming out of left field, I guess. Because a lot of times you get a mystery movie or a horror movie or a ghost story movie, it's hard to stick the landing. Everything starts feeling a little contrived. I think this largely avoids that because I think it's just written so tightly. It's well thought out in terms of what the mystery is and what happened and what led characters to do the things they did. And it's got kind of like this classic kind of ghost story, haunted house almost type vibe to it, with also kind of the psychic angle and about the inner turmoil of seeing trauma that you can't shut it out of your life. You can't stop it from kind of invading your thoughts. And Kevin Bacon's really good. Kevin Bacon's a guy, I've always really liked Kevin Bacon. I think he's super solid. He works a lot too. He does a lot of good stuff and things that you don't really hear too much about. It was nice to just come back and see this performance with Kevin Bacon here. I think he brings a lot of dimension and life to it that somebody else maybe wouldn't have been equipped to handle because he's not afraid to kind of be unlikable. You meet these characters in kind of a precarious situation in their lives. They're working class people trying to move up the ranks, trying to make something of their life, and but there's a certain kind of regret and misery that is self-imposed, especially when it comes to the Kevin Bacon character. He had just aspirations, and then he started a family, and he had to kind of leave those things behind. So it kind of has, in a sense, that there's this catharsis in the story about having him solving this mystery. Is almost like this cathartic thing of him finding his purpose, but also dealing with the past. Because there is a little bit of, and I think if the movie does have a failing, is that maybe it doesn't dive into this kind of aspect enough. Because it's definitely there a little bit, and it would have been more interesting if they had maybe gotten more into Kevin Bacon as like his internal life of his character, and how much the disappointments kind of affect him. It's really all kind of surface level. It works for what it is, and it adds a little texture, and it's there, and I appreciated that. I think it's better than a lot of people are going to give it credit for. It's not... I don't know if is it an all-timer? I don't know. I was thinking about this. I was like, because just what I said earlier about pitting these similar movies against each other. I was like, do I like this more than I like The Sixth Sense? I think The Sixth Sense is like the form of The Sixth Sense is much more impressive. It's executed more interestingly. But I've got a soft spot for Stir of Echoes. And I was pleasantly surprised by how well I thought it held up. It's like just a solid spooky movie. It's not particularly scary. It's not particularly engrossing in a way that something deeper would be engrossing. But I think it does its job, and it does it pretty well. I think if you're just a general horror fan, I imagine you probably like Stir of Echoes. I wish it went a little bit deeper into some of the character stuff, and maybe if it had a stronger thematic pull line. If it has a weakness, it's definitely that. Because like I said, going back to what I said about David Koepp, he's a little more of a literary guy, and I think sometimes like what works on paper doesn't always work on screen. If you've ever seen his other movie that I mentioned earlier, Secret Window, that's a movie, while also adapted from a Stephen King novel or short story, is more interesting if you were to read it. Actually visualizing it and having to see it, at least the way that they did it, is a little silly. It just kind of doesn't work as well. And while I don't think that Stir of Echoes really ever gets into silly territory, I do think that it could come off as a little maybe too obvious, just because of the medium, and it might lose you a little bit. Although, having said that, like I said, I don't think it ever sinks into contrivance. I don't think it ever doesn't distract you with how clever it thinks it's trying to be. So I don't know. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the revisit. So there's that. I don't know if I would, if you could recommend it to anybody, but a general horror fan for sure. I think they're going to like this movie. But it's just like kind of a pulp horror ghost story, and it does a good job. I know I'm just repeating myself now, so I'm going to stop. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, if you'd like to keep up to date with everything Zoobox, links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, and my personal Twitter. If you'd like to make a recommendation, if you want to hear me talk about something, just leave it in the comments and I'll put it on the list. And if I get a request, I'll do a little bit more research and stuff than these totally off the cuff reviews that I do. I just do this for fun. It's just, I can't put too much. I don't got time to put effort into these. But all right, everybody, have a good one. Adios.